Good morning, happy Friday, happy first day of August. I'm meteorologist Andrew Pritchard taking a look at your Canadian Prairie weather story. Starting off talking about the wildfire smoke, it is thick across portions of the Prairie provinces. It is thick all the way down into parts of the United States as well. Storm chances do continue next week, and some of that rain forecast to fall on some of our higher populated fire areas across northern Saskatchewan and northern Manitoba. Not going to really, eradicate the issue there, but it is nice to at least see some rain forecast across those areas. Looking at a potential trend toward a warmer, drier pattern as we head into mid-August. We've kind of been running with this persistent stormy forecast through much of the summer. It's been a very favorable weather pattern for us across the Prairie provinces, and it's not as if we're going to fully shut that down, but it does look like maybe the storm chances become a little more spaced out, and we're going to introduce more in the way of warmth across the Prairie provinces, but again, not talking about extreme heat and certainly not prolonged heat. So it's a step back from a really stormy pattern just to one that's a little warmer and a little less stormy here. As we look at the last 7 days, a lot of precipitation, especially south of Highway 1, a little drier as you get up towards Highway 16, but Calgary, nearly 2 inches, southwestern portions of Saskatchewan, some areas seeing 2 to 3 inches of rain. Winnipeg, nearly 2 inches as well. Regina and Saskatchewan coming in a bit drier there, though. That pocket of kind of drier conditions that got missed. Portions of east central Alberta into central Saskatchewan, and then, far northern portions of the Prairie there across portions of southern and central Manitoba as well. But another strip of good precipitation, at least across, the southern third or southern half of the Prairie down into the northern plains of the United States. Now we get started with the satellite picture here on Friday morning. We've got this ridge of high pressure that's brought some warmth into the area, and again, has kept us kind of drier over the last 24 hours at least. We do have a pretty big thunderstorm cluster here across far southwestern Saskatchewan, extreme southeastern portions of Alberta. But by and large, pretty quiet here across this corridor from the Prairie into the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest of the U.S., where it's been really stormy over the last, I want to say 2 weeks, but it's been more than that, 3-4 weeks, really much of the summer. This corridor here from Calgary, down towards Chicago has been really, really active with thunderstorm clusters. Now, this is a satellite freeze frame last night as the sun was going down, kind of last evening around 6:30 Central Time. You can see the thick smoke across a lot of the Prairie, a little bit thinner as you make your way into Alberta, but certainly central Saskatchewan, down into central and southern portions of Manitoba, then down in towards the Great Lakes, really thick plume of smoke. I put my drone up in the air this morning. This is Friday morning, August 1st here, down in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. So all the way down in central Illinois, thousands of miles away from these fires. But the jet stream has brought the smoke into our region, and it's brought it all the way down to the surface in some instances. So this should be a pristine, blue sky, fall-like morning here with this cooler, less humid air mass being brought down into the region. But certainly the haze is elevated, and we can smell the smoke down here near the surface all the way down in the Midwest across portions of the Corn Belt. Again, the forecast has this smoke continuing to kind of sit across the region. I know this map is really focused on the lower 48, but we can pick out a lot of the Prairie, and you can see especially eastern areas here with these fires across Manitoba and Saskatchewan and jet stream flow kind of coming over the ridge. Really going to keep that smoke pretty thick at times across Saskatchewan and Manitoba. May see that at times across Alberta, but you're kind of spared at this time because of the location of the fires and the trajectory of the jet stream. Some of the smoke we're experiencing here in what I just showed you, the drone image taken right here in central Illinois. Some of this smoke actually coming from the western U.S. as well. We have fires across Colorado and Arizona that have a lot of smoke being brought into the atmosphere and being driven by that, weak jet stream flow. It just kind of sits here. It's not really being blown anywhere, any sort of speed or anytime soon. As we look at the fire weather index here, continuing to see really elevated conditions across areas north of the Prairie in general. So it's primarily the woodland areas here across northern and central portions of Alberta and Saskatchewan into Manitoba that have been dry and are seeing those fires kind of come back to life. We saw a really early start to the fire weather season back in May, kind of brought it down a little bit in June and a lot of July, but as I show you some of the precipitation maps here over the recent period here, the last 30 to 45 days, really been pretty dry. And now we've introduced a little bit more in the way of summertime heat to the region, so we're seeing those fires become quite numerous once again. Here's your last 30 days of precipitation. Again, you see the blue shading across a lot of the prairie, the southern portions of Alberta all the way into southern Saskatchewan and southern Manitoba. The majority of the prairie here has seen pretty typical precipitation, if not more than expected here during the summer. Again, a very favorable pattern, but the last 30 days, areas north of Highway 16, as you get into the denser, woodland areas, it has been pretty dry over the last 30 to 45 days as the jet stream has sat a little further south, keeping the thunderstorms in play, every few days across the prairie. That's kept them too far south of the woodland areas here where we got these fires beginning to crop up. The radar picture here, I mentioned that thunderstorm cluster across far southern portions of Alberta into far southwestern portions of Saskatchewan. May look for scattered thunderstorm activity to continue across portions of Alberta and maybe far western Saskatchewan. Really, much of our rain chances over the next 7 days are going to come as we get into the early to middle part of next week. Weather alerts right now, Alberta, you've got some heat warnings in place here as those temperatures have been a little bit more on the warm side. Those overnight lows in the mid-teens, those afternoon highs getting into the upper 20s. The red shading you see across Saskatchewan and Manitoba, that is air quality alerts, and those extend all the way down into, again, the Midwest of the U.S., where I'm recording this video, nearly 1,000 miles away. Temperatures this morning, really pretty uniform across the region, a little warmer as you head further south where you can find some mid-teens, but a lot of people between 12 to 15 degrees across the prairie right now, the cool spots being around 8, 9, 10 degrees, the warm spots being closer to 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. Now, as we just look at the next few days in higher resolution from our NAM model, take a look at those precipitation chances in the near term. Again, scattered shower and thunderstorm activity possible as we head through the day today into tonight, and then potentially continuing into the day on Sunday as a slow-moving storm system kind of spins across the region. So Alberta, western Saskatchewan, scattered thunderstorm chances as we head through the next 48 hours, and then we get another bigger area of low pressure that comes on into the region early to mid next week. So total precipitation between today, Friday, August 1st, and midday, Monday, August 4th. Heavy pockets here where you could see 1 inch to 2 inches where some of these heavier thunderstorms occur. Some pockets of lighter totals there, but really this is an Alberta in extreme western Saskatchewan precipitation event. Through the weekend, drier across the majority of Saskatchewan into Manitoba as we see high pressure across the region. This is the NAM model. This is the European model. So you see a good agreement on the location here. Some differences, though, in the location of the heaviest, the amount of the heaviest, and the European model here bringing even some light showers further east into portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Pretty inconsequential precipitation there, really until we get into, again, early to mid next week. Here's your 10-day precipitation forecast. You see some big changes there. Alberta, you're still talking about getting that heavier precipitation. Southwestern Saskatchewan there, a bit heavier, but you see some pockets that get missed there. Where we could be on the lighter side, talking about, certainly a trace to maybe less than 1/2 inch in some of these areas, but then you also note the precipitation north of Highway 16 and the denser forested areas here. We need to get some moisture as well. So by and large, when you look at this map, 10-day precipitation forecast for essentially the first 10 days of August, hard to argue with this. I know there are pockets that get missed, but we really keep the window of opportunity running through another 7 to 10 days. Another way to kind of look at this in a more responsible way as we talk about hard to predict precipitation this time of year, this is your 10-day probability of picking up 1/2 inch or more. Again, 10 days, August 1st through the 10th. You see a lot of red here. This is where we're talking about 90 plus probabilities. The lower end here, we've got 70 to 80% across portions of central Saskatchewan into central Manitoba. Take it a step further. This is your probability of 1 inch or more over the next 10 days. And again, a lot of orange here where we're talking about a 50 to 70% chance. The lower end here, central, eastern Saskatchewan into Manitoba, you're a little bit drier here, a little lower odds. 30 to 50% chance of picking up 1 inch or more of rain over the next 10 days, though. And as we kind of flip this over and look at who's dry over the next 10 days, where you see the dark red, this is the probability of picking up less than 1/2 inch over the next 10 days. And you see really the western third of the United States is where this ridge is anchored. We've also got ridging set up here across portions of the central and eastern Corn Belt. I've lost my cursor here. You can see kind of the orange shaded colors there, but really high pressure across a lot of the American growing region. But from the Prairie down into the Dakotas, very low odds of picking up less than half an inch here. As we just talked about, storm chances continue to roll over the top of that ridge. A little warmer, a little drier right now, and kind of no surprise, we've seen the fires perking up across the northern portions of the Prairie provinces here with this ridge of high pressure. Jet stream flow continuing to essentially kind of run through the Prairie provinces, but right now you can understand why that first little weaker system over the next couple of days, today into tomorrow, kind of lifts north over the top of this ridge. Let me play out the next 10 days for you, though, because this ridge does move east, and eventually we get some troughing over the western, portions of British Columbia. Jet stream flow becomes a little stronger then, again, early to mid, maybe even late next week. This is when that next organized rain chance kind of rolls over the top of that ridge right through the Prairie next week, looking like another stormy one across the region. And then as we roll into kind of August 10th through the 20th, this is not the ridge blowing up across the Prairie. This is simply, maybe stronger ridging lifting into the Prairie here, kind of butting up against the region, but still plenty of, opportunity for this August 10th through the 20th timeframe, which I'm kind of walking toward a potential warmer, drier window, could certainly end up being, stormy. Once again, this is not me saying the ridge is going to balloon across the region. We're turning hot and dry. This is ridging, maybe expanding and nudging up toward the area, but everything kind of hinges on where the jet stream, remains the strongest. As we kind of run back to today, jet stream flow running south of the Prairie with some ridging kind of overhead. So this is, again, weak jet stream flow, hotter, drier conditions, fires becoming more numerous and more intense. And then as we roll into the middle part of next week, we see that jet stream coming right back to the Prairie. Get one or more areas of low pressure to generate right across this region, bringing thunderstorm clusters that run right through the area. So this persists through much of next week. It's as we take it into August 10th through the 20th. I mentioned the jet stream maybe allowing that ridge to build in across the western U.S. such that we kind of reduce thunderstorm chances here, but still keeping the jet stream rather nearby. And if anything, maybe bringing some more in the way of rainfall to areas that badly need it here, where the fires are a little bit more numerous. So here's your week 1 on the left, week 2 on the right, precipitation anomaly forecast. Week 1, very stormy. You see the dark green there from Alberta all the way into the Dakotas. Really just keep the same pattern rolling that we saw for much of July and for a lot of June as well. And then week 2, as you look at your precipitation forecast there, it's really close to that line where we're you see some white and then that first shade of brown or, coloring there. This is really essentially a near average rainfall forecast for August 8th through the 15th. So maybe trending warmer and drier, but again, this is far from a full shutdown. We would be looking at those dark red, maybe red shaded colors here if we were going to look at a sudden shift toward extreme heat and extreme dryness across the Prairie. This looks like really a favorable end to a pretty favorable growing season across the region. So as we look at, temperatures forecast across the area, we do see some heat walking into the area at times, but once again, I show you your 10-day forecast, and you're not seeing prolonged periods of those temperatures peaking in the 30 to 35 degree range. If anything, we're settling back to the mid-20s here in Calgary. Edmonton, a little bit warmer, mid-20s through the back half of the weekend into early next week. Saskatoon, though, look at the cooling trend here. A little warmer here today and tomorrow, but getting back down to the mid-20s over the back half of the weekend. Here is Regina, and then a little warmer as you head further east. Winnipeg seeing those highs very consistent, 27 or 28 degrees until I talk to you next Friday, August 8th. Overnight lows in the middle to upper teens. So just a little bit warmer as you make your way further east. Really, I know the wildfires are cranking right now. The smoke is thick. But by and large, another pretty favorable forecast here over the next week. And, a week 2 forecast that looks like it's got some potential there to be stormy as well. We'll just have to see as we get a little bit closer. So I'm going to wrap it up for now. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll talk to you again next week.